Okay, thank you.
This meeting is being recorded. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the meeting notes here. So we're going to start with the buyer agent steps. And is there a way for me to make this bigger? No. Okay. So this is something I typed up. When we get offers accepted and are opening escrow, it's really time to put our foot on the gas and keep it there, because there's a lot of steps during the process, which most of us know. But I've typed up the buyer's agent side and the sellers, and this is a document that you could take and you could add to your own steps. But let's go through it. A buyer's agent, the buyer selects their realtor, and maybe ahead of selecting their realtor, they'll be pre-approved with a lender. But buyer's agent, make sure that you have that pre-qual or pre-approval with a lender before you're showing them property, because that is very time consuming. You want to make sure they can qualify and you're showing them homes or properties within their budget. So make sure when you're showing properties to the buyer, because the fallout days on the contract are all 17 days to remove appraisal and loan contingencies. A lot of the seller's agents are asking for that time to be shortened. So make sure prior to even having your offer accepted that you understand from the buyer's lender how quickly they can move through the steps and what would be acceptable contingency days for them. So I've seen it cut down to 10 days. I've seen it cut down to 5 on the loan and appraisal contingencies. Sometimes it's really hard to get an appraiser out there. So be communicating with the lender, excuse me, prior to writing offers, because then you understand how quickly that lender can process that file. So that you know when you're countering or anything like that or writing the offer, how many days you really need for the loan and appraisal contingency, because that is out of our control. We need to work hand in hand with the lender on that. So now, congratulations on step 5, your offer has been accepted. Once your offer is accepted as a buyer's agent, I always recommend that you get the purchase contract to the lender ASAP so that they can start working on that file. So once you're accepted, you have your fully executed contract and all the counteroffers and or addendums that go with that offer. Shoot a copy off to the lender right away. They'll appreciate it and they can get working immediately. So usually the listing agent is going to provide you with the escrow company and they will provide the document to the escrow company. So I did not type that on the buyer's side. But if it makes you more comfortable, you can also shoot a copy off to the escrow company that is specified in your contract. So for our Alhambra agents, you're also going to take that purchase agreement and forward it to Anna Flores, our transaction coordinator. Arcadia agents will send a copy to Tu Hong, and they will go ahead and create a SkySlope account for you. Or if you want to create your own SkySlope account, you can go ahead and do that. Now, if there's agents here that have never created their own SkySlope account and you want to learn how, let us know and we can schedule a time to train you on the system with one of the TCs at your office. So when you get accepted, send off the purchase agreement either to Anna for Alhambra or Arcadia for Tu Hong for Arcadia. So the buyer, you need to make sure they understand they need to get the initial deposit into escrow within 3 business days. 3 business days meaning that the weekends don't count. Have your buyer provide that as soon as possible into escrow because the listing agent is going to be looking for that. And then the buyer's agent, you're going to make sure that you're receiving all the seller disclosures from the listing agent. The default on the contract is 7 days after acceptance. If it's been shortened, pay attention. Maybe they shortened it to 5 days, but normally the listing agent will leave it to the default of 7 days. So buyer's agent, if you have not received those disclosures, even on the 7th day, I'd probably be placing a call and or an email to that listing agent because we want to run our side as on time as possible. Okay, buyer to review and initial and sign those seller disclosures. The default days on the contract are 17 days after acceptance. Sometimes the days are modified. Again, pay attention to your contract. I have this in Word form, so if you want it, you can have it, and you can amend the days that pertain to your deal on this document and add any other items. So when you're reviewing the documents, also make sure that you've asked escrow or the listing agent to, to include that preliminary title report right up front, the NHD report, and hopefully they already have the HOA documents for you. Very important that the buyer receives the HOA documents, and that needs to be from a third party, not from you, the agent, but have escrow or the HOA send directly to your buyer those HOA documents. We want that layer in between. We don't want to be sending them ourselves as agent in case there was anything missing. We want it to either come from the HOA or from escrow directly to your buyer. So make sure you're reviewing the prelim, NHD, and HOA documents along with the buyer, the seller disclosures. So return all signed disclosures to the listing agent. So go through those. I generally recommend meeting in person if it's possible to go over all of the disclosures with your buyer. Have them initialed and signed, and you sign where it's appropriate. And remember, agents, you will also need to be performing an AVID, agent's visual inspection. So you may want to go schedule that and go to the property and do your agent visual inspection, within the first 7 days, so that you have that ready with the seller's disclosure, so you can get that signed at the same time. So you're going to want to keep corresponding with the lender, at least checking the timeframes, making sure that they are on point and that they're getting the appraisal scheduled within your contingency period. Again, this is we can't control appraisals, but I like to keep in touch with the lender to make sure they know, hey, these are our contingency days, we're running up against it. So if you had the default days of 17 days, you may want to, make sure that that appraisal has been scheduled at least by day 11 or 12. So it gives time for that appraisal to get back to the lender, and everything's a go on that. Okay. So you're also going to be scheduling a professional home and termite inspection within your contingency period time frame. If it is 17 days, or it may have been amended to lower days after acceptance, make sure you are scheduling not later than 10 days after acceptance. And the reason why is you're going to want that report printed and able to have time to digest it with the buyer. If the buyer has any questions, maybe they want to talk to their contractor. So give the buyer time to review that report, that inspection report. And at that point, if there's any repairs they want to request from the seller and or credits, you're going to complete a request for repair form, and you're going to begin negotiating with the seller on those repairs or credit. Just a reminder, homes are sold as is. It's written in the contract. But even at as is, it doesn't hurt to ask for repairs or credit. The seller may go along with it. So always ask, see if you can get what your buyer needs. It does not hurt to ask, okay? A lot of times they'll respond and do something. So if you're not completely 100% aware of city required inspections in the area you are selling, please check on this. There is a list that we have here at the brokerage of cities that require inspections. But if you're not sure, make sure you're asking the listing agent if there's a city required inspection. LA has a 9A report. City of San Marino has a compliance report that has to be done. So make sure that you're 100% sure if there's a city required inspection or not. If you know it's required and you haven't received it, make sure that you are putting in writing and asking the listing agent for that report. So you're gonna, we already addressed this, you're gonna go ahead and review those inspection reports. Again, after that, because you're gonna almost be ready to be removing inspection contingencies once the seller answers your request for repair. Check again on your loan and appraisal status with your lender. I would do a check, 2 or 3 times, just a quick email or a phone call, just to make sure you're still on track and that nothing changed with the buyer's status. So you want to make sure that that's smoothly going through underwriting, and you want to be able to know immediately if there's any issues so that you can address those. If you know there's going to be an issue and you need to ask for an extension, it's good to ask sooner rather than later with the listing agent. So escrow or the lender is going to schedule with the buyer loan document signing. It's up to you whether you go to that. Sometimes I have, and most times I don't, it depends. So if your buyer wants you to accompany that with them, you can certainly do that. So once your buyer has concluded all their inspections, including the request for repair, and the lender has given you the green light on the loan and appraisal, everything's good on that, be prepared to remove all contingencies on a CR form. Okay, and once you remove all contingencies, send a copy to the listing agent. I know that some people wait until the listing agent requests it. I'll leave that to your discretion. The listing agent can give you a 2-day notice to perform if you're not staying on top of your contingencies, but just be ready. Once you know everything's concluded, the loan and appraisal are looking good, be ready with your buyer to remove all contingencies, because most likely the listing agent is going to be on top of that and they're going to make sure that you do it. Okay, so keep your communication open with the listing agent. Again, if you need any extension of time on a contingency, ask sooner rather than later so they're not surprised, and they can address that with the seller. Okay, so it's better just to be very transparent. If you're going to need more time and you can explain it, go ahead and do that and request it. And then the last 5 days prior to close of escrow, you're going to need to schedule with your buyer, and it has to be the buyer. It can't be the buyer's mom, the buyer's aunt. It has to be the buyer on contract to perform the verification of property condition. Now, if the buyer can't make it, there is a box on the VP form to check that they're waiving that, and you would need them to sign it. But it does have to be the actual buyer. Make sure that you perform this task with your buyer 5 days prior to close of escrow. And also, it's a good time because I've showed up at properties after, when we're ready to the day before close, and there's a bunch of debris or junk left in the yard or trash cans overflowing, things like paint or, oil left in the garage. So be reminding the listing agent that the buyers expect all debris to be removed from the property. So you don't want a bunch of stuff that the buyer would have to haul away. That is the seller's responsibility unless it's something the buyer has agreed in contract to keep at the property. Okay, so coming down here, the escrow will let the agents know. They usually send an email when the property is recorded. So depending on how your contract is structured, you're going to pick up the keys from the listing agent or the escrow company, or you can have the buyer go to escrow, and if you pick them up, go ahead and deliver them once that's recorded. I think it's a good idea to drop the keys and the remotes off to escrow. It makes it simple because the escrow will have a closing package for them. They can grab everything at once. I normally take a bag down of the keys and the remotes over to escrow and let them deliver it with the closing package. so that the buyer's agent isn't scrambling to try to figure out how to get those keys. Remind the buyer to switch all the utilities into their name upon close of escrow. You can do this ahead of time. The buyer can simply call in and instruct the utility companies of the date to switch the utilities. So make sure that you're reminding them, because you don't want any interruption in the utilities. So make sure that you are reminding your buyers to go ahead and call in and get those utilities switched. The listing agent may be reminding you of that as well. So congratulations, you've closed your transaction. It's a lot of work. It's very satisfying. If you follow a list, you're going to do fine. I know that most of us do very good during this process, but it's just a little reminder. It also is a reminder to me when I was typing this up of the steps to take, and that I can use this as a living document and add additional steps if I feel they're required. This is a residential list, okay? So now we're going to exit out of the buyer side, and we're going to go into the listing agent side, what a listing agent is doing, okay? Okay, the steps for a selling agent, listing agent. So the seller selects the listing agent. Congratulations. Now you're ready to have your listing agreement signed, and you also have the MLS input signed at the same time for the office. Have it filled out, have the seller sign it. Again, I'm reminding you, if you don't know 100%, be checking with the city you're selling in to see if there's a city report required. You want to order that up fairly quick if it is required, so that it doesn't delay your escrow and your contingency periods. And also the same with HOA documents, if they're required, get those ordered quickly. If there are any liened or leased items on the property, such as solar panels, water softening systems, make sure, listing agents, that you already have that contract in your file when you list that property. It'll be much easier for you. You can supply a copy also to escrow, which we always do. If we have a contract for a solar panel, we always pre-supply it to escrow so they can look it over and help us on that too. So go ahead and ask the seller for those documents and put them in your file. So after you have your paperwork signed, it's a very exciting time. You're going to schedule your professional pictures or take them yourself. If anybody needs a professional photographer referral, there is one that we have been using that we're very satisfied with. So you take the pictures yourself, or you schedule your professional photographer, which makes a big difference on how the property's presented. You know, he uses a huge camera. Also, our professional photographer can also draw a floor plan if you need it. He does aerials. So it's nice if you're willing to invest a little bit to have a professional photographer. So at this point, right when you get the listing, I would order the prelim title report of the title company that is on contract, as well as the NHD report, because you want to be looking at those as quickly as possible to know if there's any items on the title report that you need to discuss with the title officer to work on or head off at the beginning and take care of. And the same with the NHD report. You want to know if it's in a high fire zone and things of that nature. So you can pre-order these. And if you have them ahead of opening escrow, make sure you're providing a copy to escrow, or where they can get the report, provide the vendors to them. So once you have your listing and you've done all the above steps, you're going to turn the listing agreement into the office along with your property description and your pictures to Denise for the Alhambra office and Perla for the Arcadia offices. These two ladies are wonderful at putting the properties on the MLS. So get all that turned in, and they'll take care of inputting it into the MLS for you. So once Denise or Perla input your listing into the MLS, agents, make sure you're reviewing the data. Look at everything on that MLS and notify the listing coordinators if you need any changes. check on everything on that page, make sure it's as you wanted it. Maybe they couldn't read writing or something on the input form, but just make sure that you're doing a cursory review of that after it is completed by the coordinator. So after that, it's going to be up and running, and you're going to schedule your open houses if it's applicable, you know, not tenant occupied. That's kind of hard to do. But if you're going to have an open house, make sure that you ask the listing coordinators, Perla or Denise, to put the open house on the MLS. And there's a little toggle switch where they can mark it public. So by marking your open house public, it is going to flood the internet. So you'll see Redfin, all of them, Zillow, Realtor.com, because you marked that open house public, it's going to flood the internet, and all of those other sites are going to be advertising your open house. So as long as you ask them to mark it public, it is going to hit the internet big time, and everybody can see your open house date and time. So that's a really nice feature. Okay, so you've had your open houses and you've received offers. Congratulations. You're going to meet with the seller and go over all offers. Excuse me, prepare your counters, send back, and they may be one counter or it may be multiple, and then send back to the buyer's agents. Now, if you receive an offer and you've presented it to the seller, and the seller isn't going to be providing a counter or anything of that, please make sure that you have the seller sign on page 16 of the purchase agreement, indicating you've presented the offer and the date. It says seller or agent will initial this section. I would rather have the seller initial it. That can be kept in my file and shows that I did present the offer in case anybody ever challenged me on that. I already have it signed off and in my file. If you want to send a copy to the other agent, you're welcome to do that as well. Excuse me. So the seller is selecting the buyer. Once all the counters go out and come back, the seller and you will review them again. Seller will select the buyer. Then you're going to notify the buyer's agent, send them right away a fully executed contract and all the applicable counteroffers. As a listing agent, you could send that to the lender as well. Talk to the buyer's agent about that. Make sure that they're getting that off to the lender quickly, so that the lender can start working on, day zero on this. You want them in right away working on it so that your contingency periods move along and progress in the time frame that you specified on the contract. You're also going to, as a listing agent, you're going to send that purchase agreement over to your specified escrow company in the contract, ask them to open the escrow. And if you pre-ordered the prelim and haven't already sent it to escrow, go ahead and send the prelim and the NHD report to them. And they can also follow up. The escrow officer will also follow up with the title company to see if there's been any updates to that prelim. If you ordered it early, most likely your escrow officer will go ahead and check with the title company to see if there's been any changes, additions, or updates to that report. So very important as a listing agent, we're going to be monitoring that the buyer's initial deposit goes into the escrow company within 3 business days of acceptance, or if you modified that time frame in the time frame modified on the contract. 3 business days, as I said earlier, means weekends are not included. So at this point, you're going to, within your 7 days, send all of the buyer disclosures to the buyer's agent. If you have it, which I recommend, the prelim and NHD report, HOA documents, if required. Make sure that those HOA documents are coming directly from the source. It could be escrow or the HOA company sending those directly to the buyer. Okay, when the buyer's agent requests, go ahead and help them schedule the professional home and termite inspection with the seller. If the house is not vacant, a lot of times you're going to want to accompany the buyer's agent to the inspection if it's possible, or maybe another agent, if you're working with them, can be there. So get that scheduled for them right away. So you're most likely, in most of the transactions, you're going to receive a request for repair and a copy of the home inspection and termite report from the buyer's agent. So go ahead and make an appointment with your seller and discuss the items the buyer is requesting to repair or credit. The seller will go over the list. They'll either respond or on the RRR-1, which is seller response and buyer response to request for repair. So when you send this response back from your seller, make sure that you've checked that it is and attach a contingency removal form. Normally, if we're responding on a seller response for a request for repair, we want all the buyer contingencies removed. And that is outlined in paragraph 2 of the RRR-1 form. Okay, so make sure you remember to attach that full contingency removal with your response. And the listing agent, you should receive a call directly from the appraiser. If you're not hearing from them by day, let's say you had the 17 days, if you're not hearing by day 10, I would be calling the lender and asking when the appraiser is going to call me, when it's scheduled. So you want to keep that on track. Be mindful that you're waiting for that appraisal call. If you don't hear anything by day 10, go ahead and give the lender a call and ask them if they know when the schedule is for that appraiser to give you a call. You're going to make sure that full contingency removal is received by the date specified in the contract. So if you have not received a full contingency period within the default time of 17 days, or maybe you shortened it to 10 days or what have you, you're going to prepare a buyer notice to perform, and the seller will sign 2-day notice to perform and send to the buyer's agent. Normally, before I've done this, I'll call the agent and ask them what's going on, that we're going to need that, or that the seller is requesting that we send them a notice to perform. So I give them a warning call and ask them to please give me the document. A lot of times that works and they appreciate the call, but if you can't shake loose that contingency removal, we need to take care of the seller. So make sure you're submitting a notice to perform to the buyer's agent. So once the contingency is full contingency is removed, I call it the point of no return. This indicates that the buyer is ready to close the property. So that's exciting time when we get that full contingency removal. And then you're going to schedule the verification of property with the buyer's agent at least 5 days prior to close. So if they haven't called you, if the buyer's agent hasn't called you and requested to schedule that, go ahead and give them a call and ask them when they're going to do the verification of property, and remind them about it. Most buyer's agents are on top of all of that, but if you haven't heard from them, 6 days prior to close, give them a call and see when they intend on doing that, because we will need that form. You're going to prepare the keys for the buyer, drop them off to escrow to deliver at close of escrow, or like I said, you could hand deliver them to the other agent. Ask your seller to shut off all the utilities in their name by the close of escrow date. This is like, they can call in and tell them the date it's going to shut off, and the buyer can call right in behind and have them put in their name on that shut off day so that there's no interruption to the service. So make sure that you remind your seller to cut off the utilities. I've seen sometimes where that was forgotten and somebody got a electric bill that they weren't happy with. And remind your seller, go over the expectations of delivering the property. Make sure that they understand that they need to have all the trash removed, all items of a personal nature that are not on the contract removed from the property. Don't leave hazardous waste like oil or things like that on the property. That's the last thing the buyer wants to do, is be running around with somebody else's waste to find a place to get rid of it. So make sure you're going over the expectations of how the property needs to be delivered with the seller. And then the seller, the buyer's agent will submit to you the verification of property condition. The seller will sign that. You'll submit a copy back to the agent and to our file. And you're going to instruct the buyer's agent where and how to collect the keys. Now, one thing to remember on this, if the seller is staying over the close of escrow date, if that was agreed upon in the contract, make sure that you're providing car form RLAS for over 30 or more days, or SIP form for 29 days and under. So that's only if it's contractually agreed upon that the seller can stay in the property after the close date. So even if the seller was only staying a COE +3, you're still going to want to have an SIP form on file signed by all parties to protect everybody. So that concludes the process of the life of a transaction. Like I said, there may be things that can be added to this that you've thought of. I'm happy to provide these documents and you can amend them any way that you see fit for your transactions. Another thing that I've started doing is I use a blank calendar and I type the calendar up and I tell the seller, this is the day this contingency will be removed. So they'll get, like, usually May and June, let's say, they're going to get 2 calendars from me. Anything that I know that is occurring when things should be happening, contingency removals, I've typed into those calendars. And most sellers really like that. If you need to amend them, you can add into it and send them amended copy. But that keeps them kind of invested in the situation and knowing exactly the dates. And that also helps them prepare the property for closing. So that is the end of this session. We're going to open it up for Peter to answer any questions or make any additional comments.
Michelle, there's a very, very nice overview of the transaction live. And I think you should send it, or the note, send the note to all the agents.
Okay.
Both for the listing side and also the selling side.
Okay.
They have a reference to. That's a very nice, step-by-step procedure. So
yeah. I'm going to look at the chat. Thank you very much, Peter. I'm going to look at the chat box and see. Okay, so let's see. We've got somebody here, and Christine. Okay, Christine Finn is asking that you want to learn how to open your own SkySlope account. Christine, we'll make sure we arrange that for you. We can teach you on that. One of the TCs will teach you. It is a lot of fun, Christine. I know you're extremely detailed. You're going to love it. It's an easy system to operate. So yes, I will go ahead and schedule for you to be trained on opening up your own SkySlope account. So are there any other questions that anybody has? Comments? So I know, Christine, you had asked a couple of sessions back about training on the car commercial contracts. We will be moving forward with that. We're also arranging to do some training on mobile home transactions. We've had a lot of people lately selling mobile homes. Those are an animal unto themselves. So we want to go over the process of selling a mobile home and the disclosures required. And I'm bringing in an escrow company that does mobile home escrow. So those are what's upcoming. If anybody has any further suggestions on what they would like to be trained on. Oh, I think, yeah, Christine, I remembered. Please put it in the chat box and we'll add that to our list and we will train on that as well. We will be training on the car commercial purchase agreement.
Okay.
Anything else from anybody? You can unmute yourself.
I have a comment regarding the opening of escrow. As you know that if you have, it is very important to get a deposit from the
Yeah,
buyer to put in an escrow. If there's no deposit, there's no escrow. Okay, so remember that. And when you receive the deposit, actually you don't want to deal with the deposit. You would want the buyer directly deposit to the escrow for wire transfer or ACH or a check directly send it to the escrow, because you don't want to take care of your client's money. If you take care of your client's money, you have to put in a trust account, and there's a lot of regulations about that. So you don't want to be in violations of the trust fund. Okay.
Sylvia is asking if we have any local lenders for mobile homes. I can get some. I know some agents that are closing a few mobile home deals, and I'm sure they know. I personally don't know, but Sylvia will get a list.
I think Marie Palacio
Yes.
deal a lot with mobile homes, so you
She
can
does.
call her, and she may have a good recommendation for the lenders.
Yeah, and Marie is the one that will be training alongside with me. I'll be doing the disclosure. She'll be doing the escrow life of a mobile home and what's needed. So that's going to be a really impactful training session, because she's going to be teaching all of us a lot about mobile home closing.
Yeah, that's good.
Mhm.
That's good.
And anything else that we can help you with, or you have any ideas about training? If not, then I'll
Good morning, Michelle. How can we get a copy of what you have today?
I'll send it to you, Clint.
Okay, should we just leave an email address on the chat room?
No, I'll remember. I'll write it on my calendar right now. Yeah.
We're gonna send it to all agents.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so very much, Peter
Yeah.
and Michelle.
Yeah.
Hi, Michelle. I have a question.
Okay.
What are suggestions for the buyer's agent if the listing agent said there's no any
There's no what? I'm sorry. You cut.
contingencies for the
Oh,
house?
wait, I'm sorry. You cut
Oh,
out.
okay.
What did you say?
Oh, okay. What are any suggestions for the buyer agent if the listing agent said there's no any contingencies for this house?
I'm gonna let Peter answer that. I have.
No more contingency? I don't understand your question.
Okay, because the listing agent told me for this house, there's no any contingency.
Mhm.
So you have to move all and contingency. There's a no loan contingency.
Yes.
And then no inspections. The owner also no termites. So if that way, so do I need to continue to buy the house, or we get back up right away?
If you don't have, if it says no contingency for all of them, well, I think it's safe to just say remove all the contingency after all.
But the owner, didn't allow us, to any contingency. So that's why. This means, we don't have, right?
Yeah, you don't have any contingency, but as I said, it may be safe to just confirm that at the end there will be no contingency remaining. It doesn't hurt to restate that, at the end, they're saying that, hey, there's no contingency left. But either way, it doesn't matter that much.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
If in fact you have already put in the RPAs that there is no contingency for at all, then
And
there's no
Joseph,
contingency
this
on
form
the
too.
contracts.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in order to be safe, and then remind the seller or the buyer that there's no contingency in questions, and it's better to say that, hey, all the contingencies are hereby removed altogether. So, make it clean slate.
So if the buyers still want it, then we can do it, right? Even though any contingency.
Yeah, he can still do it. He can still say
okay.
that he want to remove all the contingency, make sure that there's no loose ends.
Excuse me. I think he's asking, the way I understand it, he wants, I mean, but the listing agent told him, we want to offer with no contingency to start with. Should
Yeah.
he work?
Yeah.
This is what he look like asking that. I mean, do you deal with the people who don't want a contingency at all?
Do you
To start with. To start with.
To start with, it's your business judgment, okay?
Yeah, but this is, but I think that's what he's asking.
I don't think it's good for the buyers to say, oh,
I don't think
no
either.
contingency at all. You know, you want to protect your buyer. If you're representing the buyer,
Mhm.
you don't want to let has a clean and definite no contingency. That's kind of dangerous.
I wouldn't go for it.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
wouldn't do it either.
I
Okay,
wouldn't do
okay. So we're
So-
gonna stop immediately. Ask buyer. Okay, we don't do this deal, right?
What?
So I gonna told my buyer. So we don't do this deal.
No,
It's better.
you won't. You don't want to say that. You just say that, hey, you know, for your protection it's good to have some contingencies.
Mhm.
You don't want to remove all the contingency or at the very beginning.
Yeah,
It's
because
not dangerous for the buyer.
let them write the offer and with contingency, let him counter offer. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's competitive out there and we've seen a lot more of that, you know, where they want everything removed up front.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, yeah, it's like Peter said, that's your business decision and your buyer's decision.
Right. Right.
Okay. Thanks.
Mhm. Anything
Yes.
else?
I think that way simple, Michelle. You need to talk to your client and the buyer. They will make decision, you know. Yeah,
Right.
because
Right.
my client, you know, my
Yes,
client cash buyer and no contingency,
right.
you know, and we don't do the loan and we, you know, and I talk to the buyer and the buyer say okay and we go ahead and buy it.
Wow.
Right.
That
Right.
way simple, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because buyer money and they the one make decision, you know.
Yeah.
But you need to talk to them and place everything clear.
Yes. That's important. That's the most important thing. You have to make clear to the buyer what kind of danger that they can be in if they remove all the contingency in
Yes.
the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at the beginning, and the listing agent say no contingency, you know.
Yeah.
And if the buyer say go ahead and they want it, you know, just
Make
do it.
Make sure you put it in writing.
Okay.
Yes.
That you have
Yeah.
advised them. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Yes.
Everything in writing, you know, not verbal.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Kenny.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, then Peter will take us out.
All right. I think we'll see you the next time. What's next topic next week, Michelle?
I'm trying to coordinate to bring in the mobile home, but if I can't with escrow, then I'll do the commercial car
Yeah,
commercial
commercial.
contract. So it'll
Yeah.
be mobile home or car commercial next week.
Okay. Great.
Mhm.
All right. No questions. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Have a nice
everybody.
weekend.
Have a good
Thank you,
weekend.
Peter.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.